Todo lo demás interior, wow. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. We'll give everyone 1 or 2 more minutes to join, and then we'll get started. I'm going to go ahead and share the PowerPoint. Okay, welcome everyone to this year's Season of Sharing 2025 annual training. Please mute yourselves if you haven't already so that we don't have a lot of background noise. My name's Andy Guire. I'm from Turning Points. I will be hosting the first portion of this, followed by Heather Nicholas from Step Up Suncoast. And then, but before we get started, I want to introduce Michelle Croft from the Community Foundation. And she will give us a little overview.
You bet. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Croft, and I'm the Director of Community Impact at the Community Foundation of Sarasota County. And we're so glad that you are all making time today for this annual training. Thank you to Andy and Heather for setting it all up. At the Community Foundation, we believe in community impact powered by philanthropy. And Season of Sharing is one of the most impactful examples of this. And this year in particular, this is the 25th anniversary of Season of Sharing, which is a partnership between the Community Foundation of Sarasota County, the Patterson Foundation, the Herald Tribune, each of you on this call, our fiscal agents, and certainly our community. And it is a celebration of community generosity that has been around for over a quarter of a century. Season of Sharing represents philanthropy and stability, flexibility, and ways that neighbors can help neighbors in a crisis. Since it began in 2000, we always reference this program as our time-tested and trusted resource for the community. And in those 25 years, we have raised $50 million to support more than 55,000 households across 4 counties, Sarasota, Manatee, Charlotte, and DeSoto. And really at its core, Season of Sharing is a way for individuals to get back on their feet, for households to stay in their homes after a crisis situation. And throughout our campaign's history, we received more than 60,000 individual gifts. So when you think about that, we still get envelopes here at the Community Foundation with a few dollars in them. The Season of Share campaign really represents a way that our community can pay it forward. We often receive donations from individuals who are once supported by the program and now want to make a contribution. Our community is committed to the well-being of its neighbors, and in turn, we're able to support them through this program. This year was our record-breaking campaign. In the short time the campaign was open, we raised $7.2 million through 2,743 gifts, to be exact. And year after year, it really shows that our community, regardless of what's going on, hurricanes, COVID, they show up to support their neighbors through this campaign. And through that good fortune, we are able to continue to support Season of Sharing, this program that you all facilitate so well into our community. And we know that this program can't go on without the philanthropic support of our community, but really they can't get those dollars, can't reach those that need it without each of you. So we are so very grateful for you and your commitment to stewarding those funds into the community the way our donors intended them when they made their donation. So we are, on behalf of our board, our CEO, Roxy Jurdy, who's in her last year here at the Community Foundation, and all of us, we really want to thank you on behalf of those donors who trust you and trust this system to get those donor dollars into the households and the people that need it the most. We really do appreciate the hard work that you do. We know that this isn't easy. We understand that Season of Sharing is one program of many in your toolbox, part of the puzzle that you balance. So we really do appreciate that you do it with integrity and that you take time like you do right now to either get refreshed on the process or learn it for the first time. So I'm really here just to say thank you on behalf of the Community Foundation. I'll be here to answer any questions, but I'm going to turn it over to Andy and Heather for the rest of the afternoon. So thank you again.
Okay, and another visitor, I haven't seen if she's on yet. Is Sandra here? Did she come on?
Yes, I'm here, Andy.
Okay, go ahead. If you would, go ahead and tell them a little bit about why getting that authorization to tell the story is so important.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Andy. I'm Sandra. I'm Sandra Amron. I'm the writer at the Sarasota Herald Tribune. I write the feature stories on Season of Sharing. And so one of the things the Community Foundation has told me, because I don't get to see the numbers and things like that. I follow the stories. I write the stories, but they have mentioned the tie-in or the impact that they have seen on there. And when stories, the more stories that are told about the people who are impacted from Season of Sharing and receive that little bit of assistance, the response that they see from the community, there's a corresponding response. So there's an impact that these stories have on the community in terms of other people knowing that the fund is even out there, that it exists if they're in a tough spot, and on donors or people interested in what this is all about and how it makes a difference in people's lives. So they get to see it in action in people's lives. So that's what that's the function of these stories. So for me, this is absolutely impossible without you guys, as I've said many times before, to many of you on the phone, because this is very different. These stories are these are special. They're very different from other typical news stories that we might do as reporters, calling people of the public, even cold calls, calling people, hey, what do you think of this new tax? Or what do you think of this new sewer service? Or whatever it might be. These stories, as you all know, they're so deeply personal for people, and they're coming, Season of Sharing is coming into their lives at a moment. It's probably one of the more difficult moments of their recent lives. And so I can talk a little bit about, what has worked, what I've seen work, what some case managers in all the counties have told me has seemed to work in getting people to agree to have their stories shared. And some things I've tried that have not worked. So I'll share those. And then I'm happy to answer some questions. So like I say, the relationship that you guys have with them is absolutely crucial. So what has worked a lot in the past is when the key person at the agencies, the nonprofit that is processing the application with them, if they're the person to, at some point, talk with them about Season of Sharing and what the storytelling function is all about. The purpose also that it serves. And it may not be necessarily at that moment when they're filling out the application because they may be overwhelmed, but it may be like a day or two later. Or in a lot of cases, because I get working on these stories sometimes in September or October, maybe months later. So that relationship that you guys have with them is just crucial for me because they trust you. And when they trust you, then they're willing to consider talking with me. And then once I talk with them, then it's good from that going forward. A lot of people have not talked to a reporter before, so once they see I don't have fangs, and once we develop a rapport, then it goes smoothly from there. But their relationship with you is critical, and it also prevents what has been happening a lot the past couple of years. People have been either agreeing and then canceling or agreeing, to the case manager and then not following through. Maybe they get cold feet. Maybe they get a spouse that says, no, we don't want to do that. But we've been running into a lot of challenges the past couple of years of people willing to share their stories because, as the case manager, you all were sharing with me that you're seeing more and more people who have never asked for help before. They might be two-headed households. They might be middle class, lower middle class, and they're running into tough times as well because of the housing crisis or childcare crisis or these storms. Now, last year, more people were willing to share their stories because if it was storm related, I think there's a feeling out there that, storms are sort of equal opportunity offenders. And so because there's a lot of shame involved that people are feeling about having to ask for help. So with the storms, though, they were more willing to share their stories. So it's become very difficult, though. Otherwise, the past few years, having people willing to share their stories. I tried. This is one thing that has not worked. I tried. The case managers were increasingly telling me we're just not getting anybody willing to share. So I tried at one point from the list, the master list, make some cold calls to people. That does not work because they're so sensitive about the moment in their lives that they are, and they get a cold call from a reporter. It freaked a number of people out. I mean, they may have been told about the Herald Tribune and when they're applying for Season of Sharing, but they're so overwhelmed at that moment they don't remember. And frankly, a lot of them don't even know that they're getting something called Season of Sharing. It just goes. They're so overwhelmed. They just know they're getting help from you guys. And so that didn't work. My making cold calls. So what really does work, and where you guys are so instrumental in all of this is talking to them and about what this is about. And I've noticed what really works, really resonates with them. They share it with me, is that they feel so grateful for the help that they get that they want to pay it forward. And the thought to them that this could help somebody else that they might not even meet ever or know really, really resonates with them. It gives them a sense of agency as well, because the last thing they want to be is considered a bunch of sad sacks looking for a handout. They want to be able to be, to see and be treated with dignity. So that's the other piece of this is, one, I've noticed that when the case manager explains to them how this whole thing operates, including with the stories, that really gives them a sense of purpose. And the case managers, I'll share this for those who haven't met me yet or haven't talked with me yet, is I really, please feel free to pass along to them. I really work hard. I treat these stories with a lot of dignity. Again, these aren't like pity stories. They're to show people have a lot of resourcefulness and agency in their lives, and they've reached a really tough spot. And I also add in to their personal stories larger social context that we're all living in right now, including this housing crisis, so that they don't, so it ties to larger phenomena. So that sometimes helps in getting people to agree to the case manager to say yes. So those are some things. Just in one final thought, we're thinking of maybe of doing things a little bit differently this year in terms of instead of waiting for me to start bombarding you all with phone calls in September saying, please help me with names. Instead, that if you come across some applications that you're filling out and you know think that this is a very powerful personal story, if you can ask them at that moment, or maybe after a crisis passes and the rent is paid and the lights are still on a day later or so, ask them about me and connect us, even if it's in this month, April, May, June, and then I could start connecting with people earlier, and when it's fresh, their application is fresh, when their connection with you is very fresh, and I could even report the story as early as the spring, and we could just gather some stories in the queue, and I can update them and before they start running in October, November, December, January. So that's one idea, but I'm open to any questions. But again, I just want to thank you for the invitation today for me to speak to you all, and thank you all for your help through Season of Sharing, and then through the year too, because I talked to a number of you through the year too on all these crises. So thanks so much, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Not seeing any questions, but if they have them, they can put them in the chat or just
Okay.
blurt them out.
Okay. Sounds good. And, and also feel free to follow up with me later, Andy, if you would like to, at the end, I'll log off, but if you want to share my contact information, anybody, please feel free to reach out to me, and we could just take it from there.
Before you go, can you put your contact information in the chat?
Sure. Sure.
And they can copy it down and send questions that come up an hour from now.
Okay. Thanks. That sounds great. I'll do that.
Yes.
I've also included Sandra's information on the Season of Sharing portal on the opening announcement page. So you'll see her email and phone number there perennially. So.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So now what everybody came to learn, the new guidelines have been released, and we want to cover those a little bit. Some changes from hurricane times and back to normal. First of all, back to the maximum of assistance of $2,000 per household crisis. When we were in the hurricane, we raised it to $3,000, but that is now back to $2,000. As you'll see here, exceptions may be considered as detailed by the case manager with the review of the fiscal agent. Those exceptions are not the rule. Exceptions are in extreme cases where we have to do something to keep somebody housed, and it's well documented. We also will continue to watch future hurricanes. We still are treating past hurricanes as an issue. So if you have someone who just showed up this week who was affected by these hurricanes, we can still consider them at the 2,000 level as a hurricane client. And elderly, disabled, and veteran clients, we're looking closely at those as well. Documentation is huge in considering a household's eligibility. The majority of the cases that I send back for not being able to be approved is simply because documentation is missing, and we're going to get into that a little bit more. Assistance is based on merit and greatest need. As Michelle and Sandra were saying, these are donation dollars. They're not entitlement dollars. These are meant for specific purposes for the most needy people. Not everyone automatically qualifies for $2,000 a year. I know in the past there was a phase where everyone thought, well, I'm coming in to get my $2,000 this year. That's not the case now. Funds can be used for rental assistance and mortgage, not including security deposits or fees except for HUD rentals for deposits. If the water's included in the rent, it can be considered as part of the need. If it's not included in the rent, it would be a utility payment, and they would need to go through one of the local agencies first to see if they're eligible. The same with electric. They need to go through LIHEAP, Care to Share, and EHEAP before they come to SOS. SOS is a last resort benefit. Additionally, with rent prices the way they are, it is common that the rent would be the bigger need, where the utilities would be a smaller need. Child care expenses for working families with a maximum coverage of up to 3 months per child. In Manatee County, we don't get a large request for those, but make sure that you understand it's 3 months per child. And that's so that the parent can go to work. And then car repairs associated with finding employment, seniors with recurring medical appointments, or parents transporting children to and from school. The biggest thing to remember is routine maintenance is not included. We're not going to replace wiper blades. We're not going to replace tires. These are just the normal parts of maintaining your vehicle. There is a brief list on the website under references of things that are not included. It's not all inclusive, but it is the major pile of, or major list of things. Any agency can serve any season of sharing client and refer that over to one of the fiscal agents, which is Turning Points and Step Up Suncoast in Manatee. They do not have to be our clients to be eligible for funds through another agency. Prior to submitting the request, you need to check the database to make sure you're not duplicating benefits. As well, collect all the documentation necessary to make the client eligible. At this point, does anyone have questions on that sheet? Not hearing any at this moment. If you do have one later on, you can feel free to ask it. Collaboration is one of the major things that makes Season of Sharing successful. Agency partners communicating with each other, clients being able to go to whichever agency they feel most comfortable going to, which may not be a Turning Points, because especially on Mondays, it gets a little crazy here. They may feel more comfortable going to a community partner. And we will work continually to get someone eligible. If they're not eligible based on an application today, there'll be something in the notes saying this is what needs to happen for them to become eligible. Typically, if I don't approve one, and I'm pretty sure Heather's the same way, or Step Up Suncoast is, because I've read their notes as well, we write in the notes, the denial notes, this is why, please adjust this and get it back to us. Also, another thing that benefits SOS is when we come together and discuss other funding alternatives. Like we do at the PATH meeting monthly, we send out our list of all of the funding opportunities in the community. Refer to those other agencies first, because Season of Sharing is a finite amount of money. We want to use our federal funds up and state and county ones as well, because if you don't use those up, we're going to lose them as well. So take advantage of those. Any questions on that?
Andy, there is a question in the chat. I'm trying to keep an eye on that as well.
Okay.
For mortgage assistance, do they have to show as being delinquent or just indicate they are at risk of becoming delinquent?
That may be a better question for you, because I only do about 3 of them a year.
Okay. Yeah, we do at Step Out Suncoast do quite a few mortgage assistants. So it could be either. They can be past due, or we can pay upcoming, showing, but we do need to show that there is a risk and that there is a crisis going on, that they are needing this assistance. So, and that also goes the same for rent. We know if a client is past due on rent, there are late fees that accrue. But if they know they're experiencing a crisis and they're not able to pay April 1st rent or April 1st mortgage that is due, we don't want to cause the client to incur more fees, because season sharing cannot pay those late fees. So we can proactively pay.
And I would concur with that. The ones I have received, we're open to either past due or proactive payments. It all comes down to what the situation is, how well it's documented, that the need is there, and it makes sense essentially. Any other questions?
I don't see anything else in the chat, but if someone has a question, they can just unmute themselves and ask.
Okay. As we discussed earlier, weather events in the recent years have made an impact on season of sharing and everything else in our lives. We will continue as weather events occur or any other disasters occur, allow for temporary guidelines, and those will be created at the time of the event. But when an event, if we know it's coming, like a hurricane, we're usually meeting well in advance of that by a few days to plan ahead of time, knowing that something will need done quickly. Total amount of financial assistance may change or may not, depending on severity. Other guidelines suspended, such as this year's hurricane suspended the one-time rule. SOS will attempt to fill the gaps, but they do need to, clients need to apply for all options available first. That would be FEMA, Red Cross, bill into your insurance if it's flood damage, or renter's insurance, or house insurance, or car insurance. We had a lot of cars flooded this year. Those need to be billed and documented first. As the next dot says, proof of application to federal, state, or local resources. Screenshots and text messages, emails can be used for supportive documentation. Things to remember with those: the name of the person needs to be present on those documents. Because if you just show me a screen that says blank has applied for FEMA but doesn't have the person's name, I can't really use that as proof, because that doesn't show that this person in front of me is the one who has applied for it. So we need to make sure all the documents are there and appropriate. Any questions on that? So at this point, I'll shift it over to Heather to begin best practices.
All right, thanks, Andy. So my name is Heather Nicholas. I am the Director of Client Services at Step Up Suncoast. We are one of the fiscal agents for season of sharing funding in Manatee County, along with Andy and Turning Points. We are also the fiscal agent for DeSoto County. So if there's any of you here that are from DeSoto, you are in the right place, just to let you know. There are a couple questions in the chat, so I want to address that real quick before it gets too lost. We had asked that, does that mean they don't have to have a 3-day late notice as part of documentation? That is correct. If we are paying proactive rent, like I gave the example of April 1st, they would not have a late notice. But if we are paying, say, March rent, because the date has already passed, we would need one. So it depends on the request that you're seeking. Okay. Is there a link where people can apply on the Step Up Suncoast website? No, there is not. So for outside agencies that are not a part they Step Up Suncoast or Turning Points, so that are not our client specifically, they can apply on behalf of your client on the Season of Sharing platform. So I believe most of you in here who are attending this training are probably set up in the platform, but if you are not, you can email one of us, and our contact information will be in the last slide as well, to inquire about how to get you set up in that site. If you have someone that wants to apply directly to Step Up Suncoast, they can go to our website to make an appointment. So, where else can individuals receive rental assistance outside of Season of Sharing in Sarasota? So I'm not as familiar with Sarasota County resources. So we're mainly for Manatee County, and then I'm in DeSoto County. So if anyone knows of other resources in Sarasota County for rent, you could put it in the chat. It's always great that we share resources. So if anyone knows of places, please put them in the chat for Bridget. Is there a current comprehensive list of other resources to offer clients? We know of 211. We know of Making an Impact. I know are comprehensive resources that you can go to online.
If they go to our website, the Turning Point website, tpmanatee.org, our resource booklet, the little books we give out to the clients, is in electronic form, a PDF on there. So it's a pretty good comprehensive list.
Right. And same with sharing resources. So just share them in the chat. I think it's a great place that we can all get connected. Let's see. Can we apply for clients that have a past due balance and might need help for the following month? You can. It just depends on the need. So work with your client, determine what their crisis is and what you feel they need to help them get back on track. So that would be for you all to determine, but it is possible to do that. Okay, and then I see someone's putting a resource in the chat. So I'm not going to go through all the resources that people may post because that list could get quite lengthy, but please keep track of it. Okay, so best practices. So these are just some common things that we notice as a fiscal agent that occurs with applications. So we're going to talk about some best practices when you are applying on behalf of your client, and then also talking about some things to avoid. So some of the best practices are, going on to the Season of Sharing platform. When you first log in, you are on the home page. Check the announcements there. They are kept pretty up to date on anything new that is up and coming. If there is a weather-related event like we had with these past hurricanes, if there's changes in the guidelines, they will be on that front page for the announcements. If there are additional resources, I know for a while there were additional hurricane resources. I know now there is information about VITA and about LIHEAP on that front page. So anytime you log in, check. There could be some stuff there that would be pertinent to you or be helpful to your clients. Just reminding people that Season of Sharing is a one-time, non-reoccurring financial assistance, and it is a last resort assistance. So Andy, I think, explained that very well, and that this assistance is to be used one time to help someone in an immediate crisis to help them get back on track. Okay. And that other resources in the community should be sought out first. If you do have one that you believe might need another time, that you are unsure about the crisis, you can always ask first. I know I have people who reach out to me or reach out to our agency who are a little uncertain. I have no problem with that asking. You just need to give us some detailed information about what's going on, because the details is really important for us to make a determination. So the maximum amount is $2,000. That is now gone back to those who have been impacted by the hurricanes as well. There could be exceptions depending on the need, and that would be also something to discuss with your fiscal agent. So whether it's Turning Points or Step Up Suncoast. So we understand sometimes in order to keep someone housed, they may need a little bit more than that 2,000. Because the idea is we want to keep them housed and prevent them from being homeless. All right. When entering a client for assistance in the platform, sometimes we come across duplicate names. So please search a client's name under the client tab and the household tab. Okay, sometimes the name might be spelled a little incorrectly. Reach out to us to ensure, if you'd like to, that this is a client that's already in there. If you do see someone there and they don't have much information, it's probably from 2022. You may reach out to us to see if it is a client that we have seen already. Those clients in the platform from 2022 may not have date of birth, address, or other information, may not have all household members listed. So you can check with us to see if it is a duplicate. I do get emails, and I'm sure Andy does too, all the time, asking for the date of birth of somebody just to ensure it's not the same client that they have. So if in doubt, always ask. Entering all the household members, so all the adults, the children, you can, if you would like to, for confidentiality purposes, for the children, you can put just initials and date of birth, and school if they're attending school. So you can put limited information there, but we would like all adults in the household. It helps us keep track of duplicate services, because if someone has lived in a household, everyone in that household received this benefit. Everyone's receiving assistance from it. Uploading all the documents. I know Andy had already kind of went into this a little bit, but making sure all the pertinent information is in the platform so that we can make the best determination. Oftentimes when a case is denied, it is because we don't have all the documentation that we're needing. So whether it's a budget sheet, a lease, mortgage statement, a utility bill, proof of payment if the client had to pay a portion of something. So please ensure you have all the documentation there. Under, I believe it's reference documents in the platform, you can find a checklist for all types of assistance that can help you clarify and keep track of the type of documents you need to submit depending on the assistance you're applying for. So checking that the correct documents have been uploaded. I have opened documents before and it is not what it's supposed to be. So it happens to all of us. So I have done it too by mistake, but just double check that you've uploaded all documents, because again, then you'll be denied. You're going to request something else. And every time we have to deny for additional information, it is delaying the process and it delays the client getting that assistance. So the more accurate you are the first time around, the quicker things will go. Be specific, and this one I would want to bold and highlight. So being specific regarding the cause of crisis. Everyone is really great at doing the drop-down boxes about why they're needing assistance. Then there's a box that's asking you to explain. Please tell us what is going on. We have minimal information from the budget sheet. We have minimal information just knowing you need past due rent. Maybe it's because of a medical issue, but tell us what's going on, because maybe that budget, they're a little bit in the negative, but because of the crisis, and we can see that going forward, they will be sustainable, that will help us make a decision. If you were requesting, a max amount, over the amount, a second time use, any of those, that helps us make a determination. It also helps us with what information we need. If you are saying the cause of crisis is due to a hurricane, then and we don't have proof of a FEMA application, pictures of the damage or something like that, it'll be hard for us to put it under that category. So please put more information in there in a cause of crisis. Entering all expenses on the budget sheet. So most people are really good at putting income, maybe their rent or mortgage, a car payment, but putting all of the expenses in there lets us know how this family is functioning, how they are meeting all of the needs of their household. And if they have a large expense that is causing this crisis. So maybe a significant car repairs or medical issues. Put that in there as well. And you can even write on it or write a little note or even put it in the cause of crisis saying that due to extensive car repairs of this amount or medical expenses to this amount, this is what's causing the crisis. Especially if you're applying for, someone had asked, for example, past due rent in the month going forward. If we know that it's a large expense and it's a one-time thing, it may lean more towards being approved for those 2 months of rent because we know it's an unexpected occurrence. The mailing address for the check. We want to make sure the checks get to the appropriate landlord, mortgage company, mechanic, childcare, utility vendor. And the only way we can do that outside of electric bill, because the addresses are on there, and mortgages on the mortgage statement, but is putting the mailing address for the check. That includes the name or the vendor. So we see this a lot with landlords. The landlord, it could be a name, it could be an LLC, it could be some other type of company. So we need to know who to make the check out to and where does the check go. We do collect W-9s for landlords, and I'm just using that as an example because it happens most often with that. However, the address in the W-9 is where their company is located. They may want the check received locally, but their company is in another state. So please verify where the check goes and who it goes to. So that way we make sure payments are made on time. Review your approved requests on the portal. So if you are wondering if your request has been approved or denied and what's happening to it, you can go back onto the portal and look at your requests. And if you scroll down, there will be a list of approved or denied, and you can check on the status yourself. In there, it will let you know the payment date, the check number. If it's been denied, it will let you know the reason that it was denied if you click on the request itself. Just allow a little bit of time. In here it says 24 to 48 hours. That's pretty correct for us too. Once something's been approved, it will be updated with the payment date and the check number. So you can check yourself the status of an application. Now I know Manatee County or Step Up Suncoast and Turning Points have a little bit of different process on how long things may take in getting them done. But you can keep checking. So we do get people sometimes asking the status and we can't always get back to everybody. So just want you to know you can check yourself. Okay.
I wanted to toss in a couple things on this
Yes.
one. First, when you said to upload everything, when you upload it, please upload it to the request as well as the case in general. Because if you only put it in that first entry on the left-hand bar, we have to fully exit the case to go look at the documents, and it slows it down dramatically. The second one was checking for the check. If the button is red, that means we haven't entered the information yet. If you click that red button, see that there's nothing there, and click OK, it's going to register that you put in check data, and we will not be able to update it again. So it'll turn blue once we put in the check data. So
Thanks,
keep
Andy.
that in mind.
I don't personally put in check data, so I didn't even realize that. So thank you. All right, any questions anyone have on the things that we discussed so far? It looks like in the chat answers are coming. So unless there's somebody needs more clarification. Okay. So common actions to avoid. So like I said, these are some things that we regularly see from requests that come in. Requesting more than the paperwork indicates. So no client is automatically eligible for $2,000. What does that mean? I'm going to use rent as an example because that's where I see it quite often. So I'm assuming Andy does the same thing. The first thing I do is look at the lease to determine how much their rent is. If they say their rent is $1,500, I keep that in mind. And then looking at their late notice If their late notice says it's more than $1,500, I'm looking for documentation to explain that difference. Maybe it's a late fee. Sometimes that's spelled out in the lease that, there's a $150 late fee, $100 late fee, and we can figure it out. But I'm looking for something that explains that difference. So if you see there's a difference between that late notice and the lease, see if you can get something like a ledger that explains the differences, because sometimes those fees are things we can actually pay for. Maybe water is included and it's not noted in the lease, because not every lease is as complete as we would like to see them. But it could be amenity fees, which we cannot pay for. We can't pay for internet, we can't pay for concierge garbage or pool fees or things like, or those, other packages, cable. So we want to make sure we can assist with everything. When you put in your request, you're requesting for that exact amount. Just because someone could be eligible for $2,000, it is up to $2,000. So we will look at that documentation to see exactly what they can qualify for. If you're requesting more, you might get denied, and saying we can only approve up to this much. Please provide additional documentation if you feel it should be $2,000. Okay. And we do the same thing with utilities, and mortgage. We do the same. So incomplete budget sheets, kind of already really talked about that, but that is a common thing that you get denied for, is if it is incomplete. If I have a client that I'm working with directly, I will say, put a 0 to everything that you actually don't pay. So that way they read through the entire budget sheet. Working with the client through the budget sheet also helps, so you can talk through it. There are some common sense things that we will look at. So if they have a car payment and it says $0 for insurance, I'm going to ask the question. If they show they're paying car insurance and says $0 for a car payment, I'm going to ask, do you have a car payment? Not everybody does, but it's some common sense back and forth. Utilities, everybody's probably paying for utilities, food, household supplies. Common question I ask is, are you buying paper towels, toilet paper, soap? I do see 0 a lot for that. So please try to work through those budget sheets with your clients and complete them. It lets us know the sustainability of that client and where their needs might be. Right. Submitting to the wrong county, it will get denied if it's submitted to the wrong county. Now, if you're Manatee County and you submit to Turning Points or Step Up Suncoast, you are good to go with either one. It does not matter. But if you need Sarasota County, it needs to go to Sarasota County. So when you select which county you want to submit your funding request, look closely. It is a list and checkbox, and it is easy to check the wrong one. Submitting insufficient documentation or incorrect documentation. I'm not going to harp on that anymore. We've just pretty much talked about that, but it does slow down the process. Avoid submitting to 2 fiscal agents. So the only time that could happen is for Manatee County. We have seen where people will submit an application to Turning Points and then we'll submit one to Step Up Suncoast. It may or may not be caught, but we want to ensure that these funds that we are fiscally responsible and spent appropriately. So apply to one, wait for that denial or wait for that approval before you try again. If you've been denied, read the directions or read the notes as to why you were denied and just reapply for the same agency. We work closely together if we feel that there are 2 applications going on at once. We regularly check the platform to ensure there isn't a current application in process, but you will receive the same service whether you apply to Turning Points or Step Up Suncoast. Okay. And then submitting an application when there's clear evidence of lack of sustainability. This one is very common. So we understand that it is really hard to tell a client that you are sitting face to face with that they may not qualify because they are not sustainable. Sustainable means that they are able to cover all of their expenses once this crisis has passed and this assistance has been provided to them. So if you're speaking with them and they are unemployed, or they are going to not have sufficient income for quite a length of time, there may be some other needs that need to be addressed. So this is supposed to be a one point in time assistance. But we see many applications that clearly the client is not sustainable. They're not bringing in enough income from the household. And we have to deny based on that. So, so have those tough conversations with your clients. Just because they have little income does not mean that they may not be approved right off the bat. Explain to us what's going on. Maybe they have a job pending. Maybe there's some other income that is pending. So put the details in the request. Okay. And then including fees in your request when possible. So
It all depends how it's
um,
in your statement, but
you
I
mute-
would worry about that until we find out if she's gonna supply me with paper.
are you able to mute the one, Andy?
I'm looking for it.
There should be a place you can mute
That
all.
you need to ask them.
There it is.
All right, thank you. So, when I'm talking about including fees, and then Andy may interpret this a little bit differently, but I interpret it as including fees that we cannot pay for. So for electricity, if they don't qualify for LIHEAP, that might be what's called non-energy charges. So late fees, tampering charges, return check fees. I already mentioned with rent where you have those amenity fees or late fees. There are certain things that season of sharing does not pay for. So including that in your request will cause a denial. However, the client can pay for those fees that season of sharing cannot. So if they can provide you a receipt, they paid for that. Maybe they have a return check fee and they pay that $35 for the return check fee, provide the receipt in your refunding request. So then we know it's been taken care of. So there are ways around it. It is the client's responsibility for those portions. The purpose, for making sure everything is paid is we want to ensure that if we pay mortgage or rent or utility bill, you are brought to zero. So you are no longer at risk of being disconnected from your utility, and you're no longer at risk of eviction or foreclosure. Okay, that's how we tend to look at it. So let me see if there's anything else in the chat. I don't think there was anything new. Okay, someone did ask, oh no, yeah, I see you answered it, Andy, about clients contacting and applying at the agencies directly. They can absolutely do that. It does not have to be from an outside agency, so they do not need to go to you. If you want to direct them to us directly and be our client, they can absolutely do that. So, okay, but we do encourage you to apply on their behalf. I can tell you it will probably be much faster than coming to the agency. So I know for us, it's by appointment only. I'm not quite sure for you, Andy.
We take applications on 3 days a week.
Okay.
And then after the application comes in, it's going to be probably another week before they even get.
Yeah, same. And it can take,
call.
Right. And it takes about the same here. So you can make an appointment, but it could take you another, week or two before things are finalized, and then checks go in the mail. So it would be much faster if you do it on behalf of your client. Are there any questions out there pending? Okay. Season of sharing stories. We had Sandra here. I don't think I could do any better than Sandra from the Herald Tribune explaining how important it is and sharing the stories of our clients. And we can share them throughout the year. So we don't have to wait until that season arrives in late fall to provide those stories of our clients. So please share them. You can share them directly with us. You can let us know that there's a story. We can reach out to her directly and provide it to her. Yeah, I can't do it any more justice than Sandra did herself earlier today. So, but if you have questions more about that, please feel free to ask.
I just popped up in the chat. If an agency is requesting assistance for a client, and they've received in the past, are there any guidelines as to what may allow for payment of a second crisis?
So it depends on the situation. There have been times that I know I have approved a second time use if it is a unrelated crisis. If it's, say, continually to be unemployed and low resources for that reason, that's the same crisis that came through before. If it's the same medical event, that's the same crisis. But if we have something completely new, we will look at it for a second time. It just depends on what their service was. We also have people who use season of sharing, say, as early as 2022, and they may have done it for a utility for like $80. And that was before these guidelines had changed. I give that a little bit more weight in the second time, especially if it was for a very low amount. So, but we do express to all clients that this is the one time. So there can be considerations, but this is why it's really important to put notes in there for that cause of crisis, especially if it is a second time request for this client, so we can make that determination.
I was going to bring up the utility one because I've come across a couple of those. And one of the other ones that I've considered was someone in HUD, it was a senior in HUD housing and HUD Section 8, and the landlord sold the property out and they had to leave. And they couldn't afford the deposit on the new place. So to avoid having a senior citizen go onto the streets by paying a very low deposit, I went ahead with those. So it really depends on what the circumstances are. So that's where telling a full story comes into play.
Yeah, I can speak to that too. I just think when we think about, we really just want to avoid these reoccurring. I think that is the key here. Everyone can use their best judgment, when someone's coming back and using this system as a reoccurring resource. There are going to be circumstances where a family is going to face a crisis more than once in a lifetime. And that's when we, look to you to tell that story. So our fiscal agents, and you can use your best judgment. We never want to have, someone that's truly, they had a significant event a few years ago, and then they find out, their child has cancer, or there's a significant life event that could once again put them in a truly, in a crisis that would cause them to be, unhoused. That is what we're trying to prevent here with season of sharing. So that's when, I don't really want to call it an accept, but that's when we would consider, you all would consider support again. So it's really, we're just trying to keep it from, people in the past that would use this as a reoccurring once a year opportunity to pay their rent. That's not what this is designed for. It's to keep people housed that are experiencing a crisis. And we just have to use our best judgment to recognize that it could potentially happen more than once in your lifetime. But that's when you really need to make sure you give all the information possible to tell that story, and so that Andy and Heather and everyone can make that decision.
Thank you, Michelle. So
Thank you.
that. Yeah, you're welcome. So as you can see, here are all of the fiscal agents for season of sharing. So for Sarasota, Manatee, DeSoto, and Charlotte County. So this is information for you. So that way, if you have a client who is in a different county, we know multiple agencies support multiple counties. So just because you may reside in Manatee County does not mean you may not have clients that also live in Sarasota or DeSoto or Charlotte County. So you can apply to the county where the client lives. I know that Andy and I can tell you for our contact information. So for Step Up Suncoast and Turning Points, our SOS email addresses are the best way to reach us. So for Andy, for Turning Points, it's sos@tpmanatee.org. And for Step Up Suncoast, it's sos@stepupsuncoast.org. Of course, You can reach out to us directly if you like, but the reason why we prefer the SOS email addresses is because they're monitored by more than one person. So if Andy is out, he has someone else that monitors that email address, and same thing for us. Actually, our someone in our finance department, Kim Steffi, is the one who approves all requests that come in through our partners in the community. So you may already be familiar with her, and that is her direct email address that is there for Step Up Suncoast. Okay. I think that's the end of our PowerPoint slide there, Andy. So that's a great big thank you from all of us. But we have a little bit of time. So I want to address any questions that any of you all might have. You can unmute and just go ahead and ask it. I'm pretty sure whatever question you have, someone else may have it as well. There are about 90 of us in here. So
Can you put the email sheet that was just
oh yeah,
up
the
back
screen.
up?
Yes. Yeah. Andy will get it back up there. And remember, you're going to apply for the county that your client lives in, not where your agency is housed. So if your client lives in DeSoto County or Sarasota County, you're going to apply at that agency. You're going to select that county in the platform.
And if they're moving between counties, like I get quite a few that are currently in Sarasota, but they're moving to Manatee, they
Mhm.
apply in Manatee, wherever
Yes.
the landlord, the rental is.
This information's on the platform as well,
Mhm.
all this contact. Yeah, you don't have to copy it all down.
Is there a person in Sarasota County that a person can go to help them actually fill out the application?
If you contact, you can see where it's Christina Rusi. If you contact her, she will let you know that in that process.
Okay, all
I
right.
can tell you that all of our fiscal agents, do try to help clients who are unable to do electronic or who might need more assistance. We can try to help them in that regard.
Yeah.
Some might have an easier time than others to do that. For example, our agency, we do a lot of face-to-face appointments, and we do help people with those applications, but we assume that you would be applying on behalf of your client, so you would be helping them with that.
Yeah, 'cause it's just somebody that's actually not a client of mine. It was just
Okay.
somebody from the public, and I was like, where would you go? I was like, I don't know, somebody, and they're, they, of course, they don't know about computers, and they were like,
Yeah.
where can I go, or who can help me? And I was like, let me see if I can find out.
Yeah.
So,
So if it's for Manatee County, and I'm not sure how it works for Andy, but for our agency, you would make an appointment online, but we also know that there is a part of the population who are not technologically savvy, who
yeah, it was
have
from
no one.
Sarasota.
Yeah, we do ask, do you have a family member, a neighbor, or a friend that can help you get that appointment? But we know that some people are very isolated and they do not have anyone to help them. Call our main number, and then we will work with how to get them set up. So, but they will be asked the same questions if they have someone that can help them.
And
So
the main number is
for Step Up Suncoast,
is what for Sarasota County? There's no.
Oh, it's for Sarasota County. If it's for Sarasota, then contact Christina Rusi.
Okay.
Yes,
Perfect.
yes. I was
All
speaking for myself. So yeah, reach out to her and she will let you know what their processes are, because I know mine.
Great. Thank
So,
you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I just had a question. So to apply for the SOS funding, do you still have to have someone with a valid social security number, correct?
For season of sharing?
Yes.
No,
You don't need a valid social?
no.
Okay. Because I think in the past, I think we were told that one of the kids or someone that resided in the home had a valid social.
I know there are some programs out there that might be the case, but not for season of sharing at this time.
Okay.
Hi, I hope to be able to ask this question correct. This is for Heather. If a budget form is on the negative due to a crisis such as maternity leave, would that be considered a crisis or not sustainable?
Well, they're out on maternity leave, so we can understand that they're not working right now. They're temporarily off work. So I believe if you're using the budget form that is on the platform, it has previous month budget, current month, and then the next month. So what would be projected out. So we do look at that. And we would also, in those notes for cause of crisis, if they're on maternity leave, but they're expected to go back after 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, put that in there. So depending on if their sustainability is just due to them being out of work because they're on maternity leave, I would consider them sustainable. If we're showing they were sustainable before and once they go back to work, they'll be sustainable again. But just explaining how they're meeting their expenses right now and they're needing help with rent, I'm just going to use that as an example, to help them get through this time, that would be sustainable for me.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We're a little different on maternity in that we tend to not consider maternity a crisis unless something abnormal with the pregnancy happened, because it's something they've known for months was coming. It's not an impending crisis. And we don't look at SOS so much as a supplement for maternity leave. If someone now has a doctor who says, okay, you're 6 months in, 7 months in, and you can't go to work because of a medical condition because of that, it's a little different. But if it's a routine pregnancy, that's something that could have been planned for. It's not really a crisis.
Well, I think the problem is that a lot of the majority of these parents, they don't have the ability, they don't make enough money to be planning for a maternity, to be on maternity. So when they go back, they're going to be behind because of the fact that they're not going to get paid while they're on maternity leave. And then at that point, they do fall behind. So
Right.
how is that?
Yeah, and so those are the things that we would look at to determine as far as the need. So I know we understand that one time, because a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck, and it can be challenging to plan. So we look at, that's why providing as much information as you can in that cause of crisis and what's going on, and what their plan is, if they receive this assistance, is very helpful for us to make that determination. Because Andy is correct. Maternity leave, most people, you know what's coming, assuming that the pregnancy is going well, and as usual, it can be planned in advance about how they're going to get through that short period of time if they're going back to work. But we also understand that there is that area where it just may not be possible. So put information in those notes. Okay. Any other questions? Now's the time. You got us. So is there anyone in here in DeSoto County that has any questions about DeSoto County? It works the same through the platform. We do have an in-person office for Step Up Suncoast. It is in Wauchula in Hardy County. But we also know a lot of residents go to All Faith Food Bank in DeSoto County and receive season of sharing through there. But I was just curious if there's anyone from DeSoto County in here that may have any questions specifically. Okay. All right. It looks like I don't see any other questions, Andy. So we really appreciate all your time. You have our contact information. So if you do think of something outside of this meeting, please let us know. If you're unsure about something, please let us know. And if you are new to the platform or want to be signed up so that you can use it, let us know and we will get you instructions on how to do that and how to use the platform itself. Because I know there may be new people.
Definitely send anybody with a pregnancy.
What's that?
To Step Up.
I didn't hear your first part of your question. Could you repeat that? Someone asked a question about pregnancy and Step Up, but I didn't hear the whole question. Okay. All right, so whoever asked the question, if you want to email me and ask again, you are more than welcome. I don't know if we lost connection.
Heather, real quick,
Yeah.
this is Becky with the Safe Children Coalition, and I apologize. I was double dipping through part of this training, and what I heard sounded very good. But we do have a new parent support specialist that is on here today that I do want to get signed up. Did you give the steps for him signing up, or is that something you can send to me?
Michelle, so we typically, unless Andy, you do something different, so to get them initially set up with an agency, we send them Michelle's way, so we can get them set up in the platform. And then there are videos and instructions on how to use the platform inside of it. But I know I offer to do a meeting, a Zoom, a Teams, or in person. If you want some extra assistance on using the platform, I have no problem doing that.
And if it's someone who's just joining your team and you're already approved as an agency,
Yes.
whoever your agency admin is can go in and set that person up in the system.
Okay, that's me, and it's just been a while since I've done it, so thank you for that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And I just popped my email back in, so it's at the bottom at the chat. It was at the top as well. So if you need help with that piece, you can just reach out to me.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. All right, anything else? All right, we will give you back your time today. And we really appreciate you attending, and please reach out to us if you have any questions. All right, thank you.